It's one of the most photographed structures in New York City, but what is it really? A staircase to nowhere, a piece of art, or a symbol of how architecture became pure spectacle? Welcome back to UrbArchitect, where today we're climbing into the controversy of the vessel, the 16-story sculptural structure designed by Heatherwick Studio that stands at the glittering heart of Hudson Yards, Manhattan's newest and most expensive neighborhood. A project that cost $150 million to build, attracts millions of visitors, has been closed multiple times due to tragic deaths, and has sparked one of the most heated debates in contemporary architecture about what public space means, who it serves, and whether buildings need to have a purpose beyond being Instagrammed. Completed in 2019, this 150-foot-tall lattice of interconnected staircases, 154 flights, 2,500 individual steps, 80 landings, and enough bronze-colored steel to make it shimmer like a giant beehive or pine cone or alien artifact dropped into the Manhattan grid. The vessel represents something far more significant than its physical form. It's a symptom, a provocation, and perhaps the perfect architectural expression of our current cultural moment when experience economy meets real estate. Development meets social media culture meets luxury urbanism, and the result is something that's simultaneously impressive and hollow, technically sophisticated and conceptually empty, popular and deeply problematic. So let's climb this thing together, metaphorically at least, and try to understand what the vessel tells us about architecture, cities, capitalism, and the strange place we've arrived at in the 21st century. Because love it or hate it, and people definitely have strong opinions, this building matters not because it's great architecture, but because it reveals something essential about what's happening to our cities and our profession. To understand the vessel, you have to understand Hudson Yards, because this structure didn't emerge organically from neighborhood needs or civic aspirations. It was conceived as the centerpiece, the anchor, the branded landmark for what would become the largest private real estate development in American history, a $25 billion transformation of 28 acres of former rail yards on Manhattan's far west side into a mini-city of residential towers, office buildings, luxury retail, a 7-story shopping mall, and a massive public plaza where the vessel would stand as the signature attraction, the thing that would put Hudson Yards on the map and justify the astronomical property values its developers were banking on. The project was led by related companies and Oxford Properties Group, working with master plan architect Cone Peterson Fox, and the vision was clear from the start: create a destination, not just a neighborhood, something that would compete with Rockefeller Center or Times Square as an instantly recognizable New York landmark, something people would travel to see, photograph, post on social media, spreading the Hudson Yards brand globally, while driving foot traffic to the luxury stores below. In 2012, Related's chairman Stephen Ross approached Thomas Heatherwick, the British designer known for spectacular sculptural projects like the UK Pavilion at the Shanghai Expo, that spiky seed cathedral thing, and the new London double-decker bus, asking him to design something iconic for the center of this new plaza, something that would be both functional public space and architectural spectacle. And Heatherwick, never one for subtle gestures, proposed something audacious: a climbable sculpture, a three-dimensional lattice of staircases that visitors could ascend for views over the city and the Hudson River, experiencing the structure itself as the primary attraction rather than arriving at any specific destination at the top. It would be a staircase as an end in itself, a vertical public park, an architectural folly for the Instagram age. The concept was inspired by Indian stepwells, those ancient structures where staircases descend in geometric patterns toward underground water sources, but inverted, reaching upward instead of downward, and abstracted into a modern sculptural form that would read as both organic and technological, natural and artificial, ancient and futuristic, all those contradictions that make for compelling marketing copy, even if they don't necessarily make for compelling architecture. The design is undeniably striking: 154 interconnected flights of stairs arranged in a honeycomb pattern, each flight connecting to others at different angles and levels, creating a complex three-dimensional network where every path leads somewhere different, with 80 landings providing rest points and viewpoints, the whole structure rising in a distinctive shape that's wider at the top than the bottom, like an hourglass or a basket or, as many critics pointed out, a shawarma spit or a giant kebab or a decorative trash can. Because once you start looking for metaphors, the vessel invites endless comparisons, none of them particularly flattering. The geometry is based on a modular system. The entire structure is composed of 154 prefabricated steel components, each one unique but following the same basic logic, connected by 2,500 individual steps made of textured steel with a bronze-colored finish that gives the structure its distinctive warm metallic glow, especially at sunset when the whole thing seems to glow from within. The technical execution is actually impressive. Each modular unit was fabricated in Italy by Simili, a specialist steel fabricator, because apparently there wasn't sufficient fabrication capacity in the United States to build this thing to the required precision. Each piece was numbered, shipped across the Atlantic, and assembled on site like a massive three-dimensional puzzle, with tolerances measured in millimeters to ensure all those stairs and landings aligned perfectly. This is high precision engineering disguised as sculptural gesture, and whatever you think about the design conceptually, the craftsmanship and technical coordination required to realize it are undeniable. The structure sits on a concrete base that houses mechanical systems, elevators for accessibility since the stairs obviously exclude many people, and structural support. The entire assemblage weighs approximately 400 tons and is engineered to support thousands of people simultaneously, with load calculations, wind resistance analysis, and seismic considerations all factored into what is essentially a very complex staircase. The structural system uses steel tubes arranged and triangulated patterns that distribute loads efficiently while creating that distinctive lattice appearance. It's honest structural expression in the sense that you can see how forces flow through the members, but it's also purely decorative in the sense that the structure doesn't need to exist at all. It serves no function except to be itself. The surface treatment deserves attention. That bronze color isn't natural weathering steel. It's a specialized coating called PVD, physical vapor deposition, applied to the stainless steel in a vacuum chamber, creating a durable metallic finish that won't corrode or fade, maintaining its appearance indefinitely, which is important when you're spending $150 million on what is essentially a very expensive piece of street furniture. Everything about the vessel is designed for permanence, for timelessness, for becoming an instant landmark that will look the same in photographs taken 50 years from now as it does today, which raises interesting questions about how we conceive of public monuments in an era when everything is designed for maximum social media impact. When the vessel opened in March 2019, the public response was immediate and overwhelming. People loved it. Instagram exploded with photos taken from every conceivable angle, climbing the stairs, looking up from below, looking down from above, the geometric patterns creating infinite photographic compositions. The structure became one of the most Instagram locations in New York almost instantly. Related companies must have been thrilled. Their $150 million investment was paying off exactly as planned, drawing crowds, generating buzz, establishing Hudson Yards as a destination. But almost immediately, critical voices emerged, questioning what exactly this thing was for. Noting that you climb 154 flights of stairs to arrive nowhere in particular. The views from the top are nice but not significantly better than from the surrounding buildings. There's no programmatic purpose, no cultural function. It's pure spectacle, architecture reduced to its most superficial dimension. Something to look at and photograph but not to use, inhabit, or find meaning within. Architecture critics were particularly harsh. Michael Kimmelman in the New York Times called it a stairway to nowhere. Others described it as a monument to wealth and equality, a bauble for billionaires, the architectural equivalent of a selfie stick, a $150 million piece of street furniture that serves luxury real estate values while pretending to be public amenity. And these criticisms cut deep because they touched on fundamental questions about what architecture should be, what public space means, and who cities are being built for in the 21st century. Then came the tragedies that would fundamentally alter the vessel's meaning and future. In February 2020, a young man died by suicide jumping from the structure, then another in December 2020, then a third in January 2021, and a fourth in July 2021. Each death prompted temporary closures, additions of safety measures, plexiglass barriers, additional security, but the fundamental problem remained. The design of the vessel, with its open structure and easy access to high edges, created conditions that made it attractive to people in crisis, and unlike most tall structures in cities which are enclosed or inaccessible, the vessel invited people to climb to dangerous heights. After the fourth death, the structure closed indefinitely, remaining shuttered for over a year while Related and Heatherwick Studio grappled with how to make it safe without destroying the openness that was central to its design concept. When it reopened in May 2023, access was dramatically restricted. Visitors now must be accompanied by another person. No one can visit alone, groups are limited, and floor-to-ceiling steel mesh has been installed on upper levels, fundamentally altering the experience and appearance of the structure. What was designed as an open, accessible public artwork has become a controlled, surveilled, barrier-enclosed shadow of its original concept. And while these measures are clearly necessary and the deaths are tragic beyond any architectural criticism, there's something deeply revealing about how a structure designed for maximum openness and spectacle proved unable to handle the actual complexities of public use. How the idealized vision of crowds happily climbing and photographing crashed against the reality that public space contains all kinds of people, including those struggling with mental health crises, and how design that prioritizes aesthetics and image over consideration of actual human behavior and safety can have catastrophic consequences. From an architectural theory perspective, the vessel represents several troubling trends in contemporary practice. First, the prioritization of iconic form over programmatic purpose. This is architecture that exists primarily to be looked at, to generate images, to create a landmark, rather than to serve any specific human need beyond the general desire for novelty and experience. Heatherwick would probably argue that the experience of climbing is itself the program, that the journey is the destination, but this rings hollow when you consider that the climbing leads nowhere meaningful and the experience is fundamentally passive. You walk up stairs that could have been arranged in any number of ways. There's no narrative, no discovery, no transformation, just elevation for its own sake. Second, the vessel exemplifies what we might call platform urbanism or experience economy architecture. Spaces designed not for long-term inhabitation or community building but for brief, intense, photographable experiences that can be shared on social media, monetized through attention, and leveraged to increase property values in surrounding areas. This is architecture as marketing tool, as brand identifier, as driver of real estate speculation, rather than as civic infrastructure or cultural institution. And while architects have always served wealthy clients and commercial interests, there's something particularly brazen about how explicitly the vessel was conceived as an amenity for luxury development. How little pretense there is that it serves any purpose beyond making Hudson Yards desirable to the global wealthy class. Third, there's the question of public versus private. The vessel sits on privately owned land that's designated as public space through a POPs agreement, privately owned public space, a common arrangement in New York where developers get zoning bonuses in exchange for providing publicly accessible areas. But these spaces remain under private control, subject to rules, surveillance, and exclusion that wouldn't be possible in truly public parks. When the vessel opened, visitors had to register online, provide personal information, and agree to terms of service that gave related companies ownership of any photographs taken on the site. This last provision sparked such backlash that it was eventually dropped, but it revealed the underlying logic. This isn't really public space. It's a privately controlled amenity that looks like public space, performs like public space, but ultimately serves private interests. Fourth, the vessel represents the globalization and homogenization of urban development. Hudson Yards could be anywhere: Singapore, Dubai, Shanghai. It's a hermetically sealed luxury enclave designed for global capital rather than local community. The shops are international luxury brands, the restaurants are high-end chains, the residential units sell for millions to buyers from around the world who may spend only weeks per year in residence. And the vessel fits perfectly into this context. It's a generic spectacular gesture that could have been plopped into any luxury development anywhere. There's nothing specifically New York about it, nothing that responds to local culture, history, or urban fabric. It's placeless architecture for placeless capital, which is exactly what critics of contemporary urbanism fear most: the transformation of cities into interchangeable luxury products, rather than distinctive, rooted, democratic communities. Yet to be fair, and criticism must be fair even when it's harsh, the vessel does something successfully. It draws enormous crowds. People clearly enjoy climbing it despite or perhaps because of its purposelessness. There's something satisfying about the physical act of climbing, about gaining elevation, about seeing the city from different vantage points, and the geometric complexity creates genuinely interesting spatial experiences as you move through the structure, patterns shifting, perspectives changing, the sense of being inside a three-dimensional lattice that extends above and below you. These are real phenomenological effects, even if they're in service of questionable larger purposes, and we shouldn't dismiss popular appeal entirely. Architecture doesn't have to be didactic or morally improving to have value. Sometimes delight, wonder, and spectacle are enough. The problem isn't that the vessel provides these things, but that it provides only these things while costing $150 million that could have funded actual public amenities, affordable housing, community centers, infrastructure improvements that would serve far more people far more meaningfully. The technical execution also deserves recognition. Regardless of conceptual problems, the engineering, fabrication, and construction of the vessel represent high-level architectural craft. The precision required to manufacture and assemble 154 unique components into a coherent whole, the structural analysis ensuring safety under complex loading conditions, the surface treatment creating that distinctive bronze appearance, the integration of accessible elevators and egress stairs hidden within the structure. These are non-trivial achievements that required extensive coordination between designers, engineers, fabricators, and contractors across multiple countries. This is what contemporary architecture can accomplish when resources are essentially unlimited, when technical excellence is prioritized, when no expense is spared to realize a vision, and even if we question that vision, we can acknowledge the skill of its execution. The vessel also successfully achieves what it was designed to do: create a landmark, generate attention, draw visitors, establish identity for Hudson Yards. By these metrics, it's a complete success. Related companies got exactly what they paid for, a recognizable icon that brands their development and drives value. That this success comes at the cost of meaningful public benefit is a failure not of Heatherwick's design skill but of the development model itself, of a system where $25 billion neighborhoods are built for the wealthy while affordable housing crises intensify, where public spaces are privatized, where architecture serves capital accumulation rather than community building. The vessel is a symptom, not the disease. Blaming it for structural problems in how we develop cities is like blaming a fever for the infection causing it. So what does the vessel teach us as architects and students? First, that technical virtuosity and conceptual substance are not the same thing. You can execute a mediocre idea brilliantly and the result will still be mediocre. Craft matters, precision matters, but they're not sufficient without meaningful purpose and thoughtful consideration of social context and consequences. Second, that architecture cannot be neutral. Every building takes a position, whether explicitly acknowledged or not. The vessel's position is clear. It sides with spectacle over substance, with private luxury over public benefit, with social media virality over genuine public space, with global capital over local community. And while individual architects may not control these larger forces, we're responsible for how we engage with them, for what projects we accept, for what values our work embodies and reinforces. Saying yes to projects like the vessel means becoming complicit in systems of inequality and exclusion, even if that's not our intention. Third, that safety and social responsibility must be fundamental considerations in design, not afterthoughts. The tragic deaths at the vessel resulted from a design that prioritized aesthetic openness without adequately considering potential consequences. This isn't just a technical failure, it's an ethical one. Architects have a duty to anticipate and mitigate risks, to think beyond ideal users to actual populations with all their complexities and vulnerabilities, to design for the real world, not a sanitized fantasy version where everyone is healthy, happy, and just wants to climb stairs and take selfies. Fourth, that popularity and quality are not synonymous. Many people loving something doesn't make it good architecture. The vessel is popular, but popularity can be manufactured through marketing, novelty, and strategic location. True architectural quality requires depth, meaning, social value, beauty that endures beyond the initial thrill of novelty. And these are precisely what the vessel lacks despite its popular success. In conclusion, the vessel stands as one of the most revealing projects of the early 21st century, not because it represents the best of contemporary architecture, but because it so perfectly captures the worst, the triumph of spectacle over substance, of private interests over public good, of image over experience, of capital over community. It's a $150 million sculpture that serves primarily as a backdrop for selfies and a marketing tool for luxury real estate. Built in a city with a homelessness crisis, a subway system in desperate need of investment, public schools lacking basic resources, and affordable housing shortages that displace long-term residents daily, the fact that we can build things like the vessel while failing to address these fundamental needs reveals a profound distortion in our priorities and our profession. Yet perhaps the vessel's greatest value is as a provocation. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about what we're doing as architects, who we're serving, what kind of cities we're creating, whether we're contributing to solutions or problems, whether our work has meaning beyond generating compelling images and advancing careers. These are questions we should be asking about every project, not just obvious examples like the vessel, because the same logic that produced this structure operates across the profession in less visible ways. in residential projects that gentrify neighborhoods, in cultural buildings that serve elite audiences, in commercial developments that prioritize profit over community benefit, in sustainable designs that are affordable only to the wealthy. The vessel just makes the contradictions impossible to ignore. As we move forward, we must demand more from ourselves and our profession. We must insist that architecture serve genuine public good, not just private interest disguised as public amenity. We must prioritize social responsibility alongside aesthetic ambition. We must design for actual communities rather than abstract ideal users. We must consider long-term consequences rather than just immediate impacts. We must be willing to critique our own profession's complicity in systems of inequality. And we must remember that architecture's power lies not in creating spectacular objects to be photographed, but in shaping spaces where human life can flourish in all its complexity, where communities can gather, where democracy can be practiced, where strangers can encounter each other across lines of difference, where beauty emerges from purpose rather than being imposed for its own sake. These are the standards against which we should measure our work. And by these standards, the vessel fails, spectacularly, expensively, and instructively, teaching us precisely what architecture should not be. And sometimes that's the most valuable lesson of all.